There is a hidden architecture to our modern world. It's not made of steel or glass, but of promises, promises to pay. It's a pyramid built not by a pharaoh, but by every government, every central bank, and every one of us. We live inside it, work inside it, and we're told it's the only reality there is. This is the global debt pyramid, and it's the largest in human history. Total global debt has reached a staggering $315 trillion. That's 3 times the size of the entire world's economy. Governments, corporations, households, we're all buried under it. But every pyramid scheme in history has one thing in common. It requires a constant, ever-increasing flow of new participants, new money, new credit to keep from collapsing. And the signs are everywhere that the flow is stopping. The cracks are appearing. The only question is not if it will fall, but when, and what will be left standing when the dust settles. This is the story of how we became unwitting builders of our own financial tomb, the story of a pattern of debt that has collapsed empires, and why all evidence suggests we are at the very peak. To understand our fate, we must first understand the pattern. The life cycle of a debt pyramid is not a mystery. It has played out countless times, across centuries, and it follows the same 4 unforgiving stages. Stage 1, the foundation of trust. A new trustworthy asset emerges. It could be gold, a silver coin, or in our case, the full faith and credit of a powerful nation. This asset becomes the bedrock, the good money upon which credit is built. Lenders trust they will be repaid with something real. Stage 2, the addiction to credit. The system discovers the magic of debt. Why wait to accumulate real wealth when you can borrow against the future? Governments borrow to fight wars and fund empires. Businesses borrow to expand. People borrow for homes and a better life. The initial debt is manageable, even productive. The pyramid begins to rise. Stage 3, the substitution and debasement. This is the critical turning point. The real asset becomes too scarce or too restrictive, so the authorities substitute it. They replace gold coins with paper promises. They sever the link between their currency and anything tangible. They create money out of nothing, diluting its value while pretending nothing has changed. This is the financial equivalent of replacing the stone blocks of a pyramid with painted plaster. It looks the same, but the structural integrity is gone. Stage 4, the collapse of confidence. The weight of the debt becomes unbearable. The cost of servicing it consumes everything. The plaster cracks. People realize the promises are worthless. They rush to exchange their paper for real goods, real assets, anything tangible. This final loss of confidence triggers a hyperinflationary spiral or a deflationary crash. The pyramid collapses under its own weight. 4 stages, a pattern as old as money itself. And to see our future, we need only look at the past. Our first case study takes us to early 18th century France. The king, Louis XVI, is drowning in debt from wars and extravagance. The real money, gold and silver, is fleeing the country. Enter Scottish gambler and financier named John Law. Law convinced the French regent that he had a solution. He would replace the scarce gold with something better, paper money. He founded a central bank, the Banque Générale, which would issue paper notes backed by the king's credit. Then he acquired the Mississippi Company, with a monopoly on trade with a supposedly gold-rich Louisiana. This was the birth of the first modern debt pyramid. Law's bank printed massive amounts of paper money. He used this money to fuel a speculative frenzy in Mississippi Company stock. He promised endless wealth from the New World. The public went mad. Stock prices soared thousands of %. A new word entered the lexicon, millionaire. But it was all an illusion. Stage 3, the debasement. The paper notes were backed by nothing but the failing king's credit and the fictional wealth of Louisiana. There was no real gold. In 1720, the cracks appeared. A smart prince tried to exchange his paper notes for gold, demanding 3 carts full. There wasn't enough gold. The news spread. Stage 4, collapse of confidence. Panic selling of the stock began. The value of the Mississippi Company evaporated. People rushed to exchange their paper money for anything real, food, property, commodities. Hyperinflation exploded. The paper became worthless. The French economy was shattered, and the social resentment planted the seeds for the French Revolution decades later. John Law's pyramid proved the pattern. You cannot print prosperity. You can only delay the reckoning. Let's jump forward 200 years to America in the 1920s. The world is recovering from war. A new technology, electricity, the radio, the automobile, promises a new era. Sound familiar? This was the foundation of trust, American industrial might. But the addiction to credit took a new form, the margin loan. For the first time, ordinary Americans could borrow money to buy stocks. You only needed to put down 10% of the stock's value, your broker lent you the rest. This was leverage. It was rocket fuel for the stock market. The debt pyramid wasn't in government currency yet. It was built directly into the stock market itself. As stock prices rose, people could borrow more against them to buy more stocks. A self-reinforcing loop, a classic pyramid scheme. By 1929, margin debt was the engine of the economy. Then came stage 3, the debasement. But this time, it wasn't the currency that was debased, it was the quality of the debt. The loans were being used to buy assets at insane valuations. Real value wasn't there. The trigger was a slowdown in the real economy. In October 1929, the smart money started to sell. Stage 4, collapse of confidence. Brokers issued margin calls, demands for more cash. Forced to sell their stocks to cover their loans, investors triggered a downward spiral that couldn't be stopped. The market crashed 89%. The debt pyramid built on stocks imploded, destroying the real economy with it, leading to the Great Depression. The pattern held. Leverage giveth, and leverage taketh away. Now we arrive at the present, and we have not learned from history, we have simply scaled it up. We have combined the currency printing of John Law with the speculative leverage of the 1920s and injected it with digital steroids. Welcome to the everything pyramid. Let's look at the numbers. $315 trillion in global debt. The United States federal debt alone has surpassed $36 trillion. That's 125% of its GDP, a level only seen after World War II. But after the war, America was the world's undisputed industrial powerhouse. Today, it is the world's largest debtor. How did we get here? Through the systematic execution of Stage 3, debasement on a global scale. In 1971, President Nixon closed the gold window. The US dollar, the world's reserve currency, became a pure fiat currency. It was no longer backed by gold, but by full faith and credit. This was the single greatest act of financial debasement in history. It gave the system a license to print, and print they did. After the 2008 crisis, instead of allowing the debt pyramid to cleanse itself, central banks unleashed quantitative easing. They created trillions of dollars, euros, and yen out of thin air to buy government bonds and suppress interest rates. They made debt virtually free. This had two catastrophic effects. It zombified the economy. It kept alive companies and governments that should have failed, creating a landscape of the living dead, dependent on perpetual cheap debt. It inflated the everything bubble. All that newly printed money had to go somewhere. It flooded into stocks, bonds, and real estate, blowing up the largest asset price bubble in history. We are now at the absolute peak of the pyramid. The foundation is gone, replaced by central bank promises. The structure is built on unsustainable debt. We are living in John Law's Mississippi scheme, but this time it's the entire globe. For decades, they told us the pyramid was stable. They said, the old rules don't apply. We have modern monetary theory. Debt doesn't matter when you print your own currency. They were wrong. The laws of mathematics are immutable, and the math now says the pyramid is unstable for 3 simple reasons. Reason 1, the debt servicing doom loop. You can roll over debt forever, but you cannot escape the interest. As interest rates rise from zero to fight the inflation they themselves created, the cost of servicing the debt explodes. In the US, the annual interest bill on the national debt has now crossed $1.2 trillion. That is more than the entire defense budget. This money isn't building anything, it's just paying the VIG on the past. It's a black hole that sucks money away from the real economy, forcing the government to borrow even more just to pay the interest. A perfect, inescapable doom loop. Reason 2, the loss of the greater fool. A pyramid scheme collapses when you run out of greater fools. Who will buy the next $1 trillion of debt? For years, China, Japan, and all producing nations were the buyers. Now they are diversifying, building their own systems, and becoming net sellers. The primary buyer is now the central bank itself. They are printing money to buy their own government's debt. This is the financial equivalent of a snake eating its own tail. It is the final, desperate stage of any pyramid. Reason 3, the inflation genie is out of the bottle. The great illusion was that all this printing wouldn't cause inflation. The 2021-2023 surge in prices shattered that myth. The public's confidence in the currency, stage 4, is already beginning to fray. When people realize their cash is melting, they will rush to exchange it for real things, accelerating the collapse. The supports of the pyramid are being kicked away. The doom loop is accelerating. The greater fools are gone. The system is now feeding on itself. So what happens next? The pattern of history, now supercharged by a digital, interconnected world, gives us a clear prophecy. It will not start with a single event, but with a cascade. It will begin with a buyer's strike in the government bond market. A treasury auction will fail. Interest rates will spike violently to attract buyers. This will make the doom loop spin out of control. The stock market, the everything bubble, will implode. The Magnificent Seven tech stocks, propped up by a decade of easy money, will crash by 50, 60, 70%, dragging the entire index down with them. Simultaneously, the commercial real estate market, financed with trillions in debt during a 3% interest rate world, will officially collapse. Offices are empty. Mortgages can't be refinanced at 7%. Banks, especially regional banks, will see their balance sheets wiped out. The FDIC's insurance fund will be vaporized in days. The government and the Federal Reserve will face an impossible choice. Option A, let it burn. Allow deflation, bank failures, and a depression to purge the system. This is politically unthinkable. Option B, print to save it. Launch QE infinity, creating trillions more to bail out everyone. This will lead to the final stage, the total loss of confidence and a hyperinflation of the currency. They will choose option B. They will try to save the pyramid by adding one last, catastrophic layer of plaster. This will be the end of stage 4. The moment the world realizes the emperor has no clothes, the US dollar will lose its reserve status in a stampede. Your life savings, your pension, the value of your labor, all denominated in this failing currency, will be radically devalued. The pyramid won't just crack, it will turn to dust. From the ashes of the old debt pyramid, a new financial order will be born. History suggests 3 possible scenarios. Scenario 1, the Great Reset, a coordinated global effort to write down debt and introduce a new digital currency system controlled by central banks. It promises stability, but comes at the cost of total financial surveillance and control. Your money could be programmed, turned off, or expire. Scenario 2, the barbarous relic returns. A chaotic, fragmented return to a gold standard or a basket of commodities. Nations and individuals scramble for tangible value. It would be painful and deflationary, but would re-anchor money to something real, outside the control of any government. Scenario 3, a multipolar currency world. No single currency dominates. The dollar shares the stage with the Chinese digital yuan, a European currency, and digital gold tokens. World becomes more fragmented, trade becomes more difficult, but the power is dispersed. There is no easy path. The reckoning for a century of debt cannot be avoided. It can only be managed. The question is, who will control the new foundation of trust? We have traced the pattern from the streets of Paris in 1720 to the trading desks of Wall Street today. The characters change, the technology advances, but the underlying mathematics of the debt pyramid remain constant. Foundation. Addiction, debasement, collapse. We are in the final act. The numbers are too large, the physics of the system too unstable. The pyramid, built on the ghost of gold and the promise of tomorrow, has reached its mathematical limit. The pattern doesn't care about your politics. It doesn't care about your 401k. It doesn't care about American exceptionalism. The pattern is a law, and the law is about to be enforced. The only thing left to do is to understand what is coming and to prepare. When the collapse arrives, you won't have time to learn the rules of the new game. If this perspective gave you a glimpse behind the curtain, then your journey to understanding has just begun. Subscribe. Because in the coming storm, seeing the pattern clearly will be the only advantage that matters.